Let's see, is there one thing people say that immediately makes me nervous as an attorney? Yeah, I would say there are 5 words that make me cringe every time I hear them. I can explain everything. People think that explaining their side of the problem is going to help in a criminal case. They believe that if they can just get the officer to understand what really happened, the officer is going to let them go. That almost never works. By the time an officer is asking questions in a criminal investigation, they're gathering evidence. They're documenting statements. They are building a case to try to arrest somebody. And the problem is, obviously, people lie sometimes if they're guilty, but innocent people also get details wrong. And a detail being wrong to an officer sounds like a lie. Stress affects your memory, adrenaline affects your memory. People estimate times incorrectly. They confuse the order of events. They unintentionally will contradict themselves. And then months later, a prosecutor isn't arguing that you're guilty because of one statement. They're arguing you're guilty because your story changed or something like that. The jury will hear, well, first he said this and then he said that. And the defendant is often the only one who's penalized for that. Victims can change their story and they're told that, well, it's a very stressful event. Everybody forgets it's also stressful for the defendant. Even if the differences are completely innocent, they can be portrayed as dishonesty. And that's why lawyers spend so much time preparing witness testimony, because the words do matter. So should people never talk to the police? I'm saying people should understand the situation that they are in. There's a huge difference between having a casual conversation with an officer who's helping you after a car accident. And there's a difference between that and being questioned because you might be a suspect in a criminal case. If the questions become accusatory in nature, if you're being asked to explain your actions, if you're being asked where you were, who you were with, like earlier in the day, you need to recognize that your answers are starting to become evidence. And people think that remaining silent makes them look guilty, when reality, exercising your constitutional rights is not evidence of guilt. It's recognizing that criminal investigations are serious. Okay, so what is the biggest misconception people have about police interviews? Well, they think investigators already know everything. Movies make it seem like the police have every camera angle, every text message, every witness lined up. Real life is not like that. Sometimes investigators are asking questions because they genuinely don't know what happened, and they're testing to see whether your story is going to change. Sometimes they are intentionally withholding information to see what you will volunteer. And people often think if I don't say anything, they'll just assume the worst, so they better say something. But volunteering information can create facts that didn't exist before you opened your mouth. They have the burden of proof as the state to prove everything that happened. And there's just no reason to answer questions from a police officer without an attorney. So what would be the takeaway that I would want people? The takeaway from this is not to be disrespectful to police. It's not to argue. It's not to run. It's simply this: understand that once you are part of a criminal investigation, your words matter. Every sentence matters. Every explanation matters. The smartest decision is not saying more. It's making sure if you do speak, you understand the legal consequences of what you're saying. And the only way to do that is to talk to a lawyer.